Welcome. This is the Post-Secondary Transition Podcast. We have conversations around the ins and outs and everything in between of the transition process for families of students with disabilities. I'm one of the hosts. My name is Meghan Smallwood, and I am a public school transition coordinator. And my co-host is...
And I'm Patrick Cadigan, and I am also a public school transition coordinator. All right, so this week we're going to take a pause in the discussion on expectations that Meghan and I have been having that, basically calls out each individual school year because we have an opportunity to speak with another transition coordinator. However, this one is located in the faraway land of New Jersey. Now, backstory. Meghan and I are always touting the benefits of social media, and this is an example of one of those cases. Now, we belong to a Facebook group of other transition coordinators, and we posted about what we were doing and how we were looking to collaborate. And our guest today, Miss Zabrina Kearns, answered that call. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to start this conversation. I too can tout social media because I am learning so much from transition coordinators all over the country because of that group.
Yeah, it's really cool to be able to connect because we also connected with someone on the other side of the country and other countries. So it's really neat.
It's done pretty well. I mean, again, we've had those conversations before with families and, social media, but there is a lot there that is useful and wonderful. And we belong to like other Facebook groups of families who have gotten together to share out information. And so again, I always preface the social media conversation around there are good things that happen there.
Well, I think it's so important too, because I have so many families that as they're planning for a transition, they have these dreams of like retiring to a different state. And I think it's just so important they realize it's not fluid amongst the states. Like you need to be aware of every other state's requirements or eligibility or whatever it is. So I love that we get to know what else is going on out there, just for my own knowledge too. So I guess starting with that, can you tell us a little bit about your professional life, like the work you do, how long you've been doing it, and kind of why you do what you do?
Absolutely. So I actually started as a teacher aide in 1999 in a school designed for kids with autism. So my background is actually applied behavior analysis, discrete trials. That's where I started. That school was pre-K to 21. I was with the little guys for a really long time. And I did things kind of backwards. I went back to school after falling in love with this population of individuals. And really, the science of ABA is just in my blood. So I did get my bachelor's degree in special education. I got a public teaching position from there, same thing in an ABA classroom. And I pursued my master's in ed leadership initially because I was responsible for so many teacher assistants. So I felt like I had such an awesome background in special education, ABA, behavior management, but I didn't know how to manage my staff. No one taught me how to do that. So getting the master's in ed leadership really opened my eyes to group dynamics and how to give really like your peers feedback because it was something I was not familiar with. I did go back to the private school that I originally started in for a while because they hired me as a supervisor. So I was there for a few years and then my current position opened. So I'm back in public school and I actually have 3 titles here. So my first title is special education teacher. And I do teach, our cohorts are interesting this year, but back to basics. I teach half day. That's my ultimate ideal schedule. And then in the afternoon, I put on the hat of work-based learning supervisor. That's what New Jersey's certification is called. It's done through the Bog Center at Rutgers. And I oversee all of my students' internships. And I'm responsible for our 18 to 21 program. And then the seniors and juniors. Our seniors also do work-based learning. And our juniors do something called job sampling. So it's mostly in-house, and I can explain that further. And then my third title is transition coordinator. So that is the newest title for me. If you give me a job title and I don't understand part of it, I go right into the deep end. So I enrolled in courses at the University of Kansas. So I'm getting a second master's now in special education with a concentration in transition.
So I guess because in our county, the way it's set up is that every school, we have 13 high schools. Every school has a transition coordinator assigned. So how is it? And I know in New Jersey, it's districts, right?
We do have different districts. I happen to be in a regional high school district,
Okay.
which is unique. So it's 2 high schools, 4 towns.
Okay. So are you solely a transition coordinator for your school?
Yes, but the way it works, like our case managers also assist with transition coordination.
Okay.
So if it was a student, let's say in one of the high schools who had a 504 or an IEP and they are not on track to come to our 18 to 21 program, their case manager would be also transition coordinating them, meaning what are your post-secondary options? Are you looking at colleges? Are you looking at trade schools? Are you just going to go to the workforce? The students who are coming, whether in all 4 of those towns, typically our one high school is really geared to assist the students who are coming up to my program eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone comes up to me at some point, but we're the program that offers the job sampling junior year, work-based learning senior year, and then that continues through our 18 to 21 program.
So how many do you have in your 18 to 21 program?
I have 13.
So there's certain requirements in order to go to that program. Like, do they have to show a level of independence at work?
It's not just work. So the whole global theme of our program is independent living, period. And that encompasses your ability to live on your own, your ability to manage your time and your finances, your access to the community, whether that's, are you engaging in like social events and clubs? Do you have friends? And then also, can you navigate the community? You know, many of my participants here don't ultimately get driver's license. So we're doing a lot of travel training. And then finally, that vocational piece. What does that look like? So the eligibility to come here, you have to have an IEP.
Mm-hmm.
You're not accepting your diploma your senior year. So I do think it's beautiful that they're allowed to walk. I think that's senior year. I mean, you're to be able to hit all of your milestones, right, with your friends is important. But then ultimately, my students do not accept their diploma.
And then in New Jersey, how do they refer to that? So where we are, you are either receiving a diploma or you are receiving what they refer to as a certificate of completion. How does Jersey refer to it?
I almost think that varies district to district. I'm in something here called the New Jersey Community of Practice. So it's all the 18 to 21 educators are getting together all over the state. And it's very interesting to see, even in the state of New Jersey, how different districts handle it, because I've heard of kids in different districts who got their diplomas. So we don't. They do not. They get their diploma from me on the day I host like a little graduation brunch for them. And that day, either they'll get the diploma from me along with their certificate, because I do a certificate of completion for what they did with us, or they can go to the main office and pick up their diploma anytime after that.
It's so fascinating to me because I'm originally from New York and it was all diplomas there, but there were like different levels of diploma because my sister has an intellectual disability, but she still got a diploma even though she went through like BOCES and like all the vocational training. Whereas in Maryland, it's very defined between you get your diploma or you get a certificate because you haven't met the requirements for a diploma. So it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's some students that we have that it's a hard conversation to have because I think a lot of parents think if they haven't gotten the diploma, they're considered like a failure or, they weren't able to do it, but they still are doing great things. So it's interesting.
Right. I mean, what I do on intakes here, and I'm extremely open with my students. We call them participants up here, right? They're not technically students anymore. They are participating in this program. They're young adults. I am very forward with them about their disability. We talk about it. What is it? What are your deficits? And then how can we become 1% better every single day? And then I also kind of use the phrase like your IEP is a key that's unlocking doors. Your IEP unlocked the door, get you into my program, right? Your IEP is going to give you the ability to maybe to get a New Jersey reduced transit card. There's benefits there. There's benefits in terms of the state agencies that are going to be there to support you. So instead of looking at it as there's a failure component for not graduating, you have potentially, depending on what year you graduate high school or what age you graduated, 3 years to really navigate all of these things that, I mean, we have people stop us in the supermarket saying, I wish I had a teacher like you. I wish someone showed me how to food shop. What else does this I mean, I get asked all the time, like, what is this? Where are you guys from? I hear you like walking them through how to use a debit card, or the bank is like the best. You know, there's other customers in the bank. Like, nobody showed me how to make a deposit. This is amazing, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, to be able to get those kind of life skills and have someone there coaching you through it is not a failure. It's really giving you such an amazing foundation that you can build upon.
Even within just the state and the districts and how differently they do things, what is the level of collaboration like?
In my own district or across districts?
I suppose a little bit of both. Like,
Well, it sounds like the 18 to 21-year-old, it sounds like there's a lot of teachers around the district or across the districts that you collaborate with.
So we have a phenomenal network. It's written on my board now because I was telling my participants about it today. We connect with at least 8 to 10 other 18 to 21 programs that are right in my county. And we, on our CBI trips, we meet up very frequently.
I love that.
Sometimes it's one-to-one. Well, Friday the 27th, we're going to meet bagels. We're doing bagels and like games in the morning with one group. And then my other cohort is going bowling and having lunch with another group. But I also rent one of the senior centers here. And what we've been doing is actually having larger gatherings. So many of the 18 to 21 programs have been able to get together. So last year we had an ugly sweater party around the holidays. For Valentine's Day, we actually did a Valentine's social, and we made, like, the staff here, it was awesome. We made like 50 hearts and cut the hearts in half, and there were questions on them, and they had to all go find, who had the other half of the heart. And, because even within my program, having 14 students, that doesn't mean everyone's friends or
Right.
wants to be friends. Everybody's ability levels are pretty different. So the more programs we get exposure to, the chances are you're finding maybe like-minded individuals, like-leveled individuals that you could hang out with and strike up a friendship with. And it's helping the staff. So I get to collaborate with all these teachers and other transition coordinators to see how they're running things. And it's curious because we're all doing things pretty differently. So our program, for example, my students rotate their work-based learning every 12 to 13 weeks. And then some of the other programs here, once they're in a job site, they're there for the entire year.
Oh, wow. So when they leave at 21, what is the outcome for many of your participants? Do they end up going right straight into work? Do some of them go to like trade school or post-secondary programs?
So I'm going to be transparent with you and say this is probably the hardest part of my position, because at that point, it's totally parent driven. And we put out so much legwork, so much preparing. I often say, like, we're passing you the baton, and I don't want to pass you a flaming baton. So I'm going to do everything that I can to make it smooth. And then when we look back, sometimes a lot of it wasn't pursued. So the ideal is work. New Jersey is a work first state. A lot of the hesitation that comes around that is the blurred lines between how much can I work without losing my SSI benefit
Yeah.
and things like that. I am proud to tell you we have many students who get hired, and it's the sites that are coming to me. Hey, so-and-so is doing a phenomenal job. Can we offer them work? So I have many students who do leave here with part-time work. I would say a greater majority are leaving and going to day programs.
Mm-hmm.
Are they set up in the day program by the time they leave here? Not necessarily. We try to, in October, really start saying, like, now is the time to start doing visits and getting yourself on waiting lists. And I think what happens sometimes, and listen, I'm a mom too, so I get it. You think June is farther away than it actually is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, like, April hits and everyone's like, we have 3 months.
Yep.
We're trying to, part of my professional learning community last year was, how could we make our transition timelines more accessible, more less overwhelming, right? Because there's so many steps,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately make that align with what you'd like to see after you graduate, or what the parent wants to see after the participant graduates.
I think that plays off of the conversation that we've been having, in the sense that where we are, our county started with this, like, let's break transition down. You do a little bit of it each year. So there are like steps to go. We took that idea and we put basically just together some resources. And then that was where that conversation started. Like, hey, if you are a freshman, if you are a diploma bound freshman, these are some of the things that the families can do. If you are a certificate track family, these are some of the things that you can do. And you try to, break down that process a little bit, because it is a lot and it is very overwhelming.
And I have a question for you guys. Does your state offer alternative programs to the 18 to 21 program that the public school offers?
So no, not really. So we're in the same county in Maryland.
Okay.
And it's also an employment first state. So everything you said as preparing and handing the baton over to the parents is exactly what we experience too. And we still see a lot of delay, even with all the information and resources that we try to give them after they leave, whether it be mostly day program. They have an option with the state funding to do something called self-directed,
Yes.
where you have that as well. Okay. So we see a lot more doing that, where there's different programming options like community development services, where they can go for part-time, but then they're still trying to fill that time with other volunteer opportunities, community exploration, those kinds of things. So it's a daunting task. And again, it's frustrating sometimes, to be honest, when you see all these great things happening when they're with us, but then they leave and it doesn't happen because it's just too overwhelming, or the programs have waiting lists, or whatever the reason may be. But in terms of our programming, until they're 21, within our county, we have a work program. They usually start in building when they're like 9th or 10th grade. As they get a little older, and it's completely individualized, but they'll go out in a group out into the community for work. If they show independence, we bump them up to like work study, where they have their own work site. And we do have a program for the 18 to 21-year-olds, but it's very small in our county. And you have to show a level of independence to be in that program. Aside from that, they usually remain in their school buildings until 21.
Well,
and that's something I know we would both love to see change and have a different option, because, when you're 21 and you've been sitting in the same building for 6 or 7 years, and now you're with 14-year-olds, it's not.
I'm very calculated about not doing that. And I wish I could show you. I know this is audio only, but my district actually rents a 2-family house that's a simulated living environment.
So you have a house that you can actually like bring them to like do some of these things firsthand.
Yes. So
I love that.
It looks, it's set up like a house. So we have a kitchen, we have a living room area, and if you see behind me now, there's like a folding bed. So we pull that out every now and then. But they just purchased upstairs. I'm so excited. So after the new year, we'll have access to the bedrooms upstairs. We're going to have a simulated bedroom. There's laundry here now. So some of the stuff we used to have to go out to do, we'll be able to do here. But every Monday, my group goes out food shopping. They buy all their ingredients to make their own lunch, and then they make their own lunch here every day. They're solely responsible for cleaning this house. So the custodians will come in for backup, but they are learning to do all of the chores here, changing light bulbs, mowing the lawn. I mean, we do it.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's a really neat concept that they developed here.
See, I love that because I feel like our focus is solely around employment. We do functional, they have classroom time for functional skills, but actually learning things like in-house that they're going to need to know, especially the ones that cognitively want to, they talk about moving out on their own, getting married, like having their own place, those kinds of things. Those are the skills that I would love to work on with some more of our students.
Yeah, varying levels.
Yeah.
I have students who are asking me questions like that. Like we'll do breakout kind of sessions.
Right.
The other thing, though, that I find interesting is that when having this discussion, and this has been coming up quite a bit lately, is the challenges even post COVID, just how that whole event decimated so much of what was being done, or at least brought it to a screeching halt. And we're still feeling the effects of that. Like we're still hearing like stories, families who were talking about, just roadblocks that they keep running into or funding issues or stuff. And a lot of it comes back to being, that they're saying that COVID had an effect on that.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely was the case immediately after. It was very hard to find job sites that would take us on internships.
Yeah.
But now I think we have somewhere between 20 and 25 business partners in the immediate area here that our participants rotate through. But that could be a little bit challenging in itself too, because my participants who are very successful, the parents automatically assume like that's the place they're going to work, right? So I think some of my next steps are learning that third year. So my students who are graduating, what does that third year look like? Can we start fading your job coach? And can we start placing you at an internship site that's not in our bag of tricks, but is more in line with what you see yourself doing?
We battle that too. I know when they've been doing so well, or like I said, when they go self-directed and the families are like, well, where can they go volunteer? Can they continue to volunteer here? We're like, well, I mean, we have so many other students we want to volunteer too. We don't want to just all, have taken away, but I get where they're coming from.
Definitely, especially because you've worked so hard to build a rapport.
Right.
But that's really one of my next goals is how can I, and I don't know what your students to staff ratio is, but, we don't necessarily always have the luxury of either sending one-to-one out. Yeah. I mean, it's usually 2-to-1 here. And I do have many participants who can go out by themselves, and I will intentionally send them to my places where the owner of the business is a built-in job coach. Oh. So like I have places here who just get it. They are our kindred spirits, and they're like, I've got this. You don't need a coach here. And they're taking data for us and giving us feedback. And then we'll have coaches come in sporadically to get some data, of course, and then to have conversations. And then myself, I go in, our behaviorists will go in. But I have a couple of sites here that are just like, nope, we understand. So if I can make more business partners like that, then yes, our students who are leaving and exiting would have greater opportunity to potentially get hired.
Right.
Also, and I don't know if you run into this issue, it's twofold, right? We're really trying to teach you these entry-level soft skill, right? Professionalism, how to interact with colleagues, how to interact with customers, how to dress appropriately for work, taking less breaks, right? That's kind of our MO, is not necessarily that you're walking in and learning how to take an engine apart.
Yes.
Right? So it's not, when we talk about work-based learning, it's really those soft skills.
Yep.
And I have had students who are very career tracked, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. That is a conversation we have with a lot of parents when we approach them with our work program out in the community, and they see some of the jobs and right away they're like, well, I don't want my child out there cleaning. I don't want them working here. So we have to go into the explanation about, well, they've never had a job. Think about when you were 16, you didn't start out in your career field. You had to learn what it was like to have a job and all those soft skills. So that's what we're aiming to do, and work our way up to building to that career. But some parents, I think, have a hard time with that.
I mean, my first job was sweeping
Yeah,
floors, pizzeria, and
right.
answering phones, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the beauty of like, I can sometimes find myself stressed about our 13-week rotation because it's to change like, 14 plus my 6, 20, 23 students every 13 weeks are rotating to new jobs, right? There's like, holy smokes, how am I going to do this factor? But then it's by the time you graduate from us, you've had retail, pet care,
Hmm.
business settings, restaurant settings, break that down into fast food versus sit down, like
Wow.
really getting a nice taste of many industries. And it
Hmm.
helps you decide, okay, I really like that. I hated that. This had me on my feet the whole time. This one, oh, don't send me back to a place where I have to have that much, communication with people. Stick
Right.
me in the back room. I like that better. And we're learning skill sets and preferences and things like that. So if I have participants here who are telling me they're taking classes at a community college at night, or they graduated high school with certain certificates because they went to, let's say, a BOCES or
Hmm.
half day high school, half day trade school, those are the participants that I am more inclined to tailor what they're doing. So for example, someone here was pursuing their baking certificate at a community college. So then I said, I will work hard now to find you a more tailored experience. It's someone that I could send to a job site solo. So I didn't need a coach there all the time. And you're putting in effort outside of here
Hmm.
to craft, to hone in on your skill. But my job coach is not going to be able to teach you how to ice cupcakes, right? Or you know what I'm saying? Like, and then
Right.
another participant who was took like video editing courses. So because of that, and because he continued to pursue it, I was able to, one of his work-based learning was with a local videography company. And he happened to be the one who filmed our promo video for our 18 to 21 program. But that was challenging because even with that, a lot of his experience was driven by me.
Hmm.
So I kept coming up with, what could we do next? We were even shooting commercials for a lot of the other sites for their social media, but I'm willing to get more creative and put that kind of effort in when the student and family are simultaneously enrolling them in courses outside of here. I know that you're very driven in that career. You know what I mean? You can't just come and say like, I want to be a voice actor.
I want to stream on YouTube. Okay.
Right. Job coach here, and we don't have the capacity to teach you that kind of nuanced skill. But if you're
Right.
learning it outside of here and you
Hmm.
want me to now marry that with my coaching and I can give you a coach, that it's different. Then we
Yeah.
can, but I can't tailor it to that degree to every single participant that's coming
Right.
in.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think, it shows the dedication and they really have the drive. It's not just, I feel like a lot of times we hear when they come in at 14, they're going to do this, they're going to go and be a doctor. I'm like, well, have they shown an interest in that? And you come to find out, no, not really. So, yeah,
Right. Well,
yeah,
especially at 14. I mean, your career, that
it's
happens to
just
be how old
starting.
my son is, and he's got like a laundry list of, and I'm sure that's going to change
Hmm.
15 times before he
Yes.
graduates.
Exactly. As I would hope it should, because every year you learn a new skill set or you're exposed to a new job and you discover something more you like or you didn't like. I mean, and that's why I told the families, like, we do interest inventories and they're like, well, I've never seen them show an interest in working with animals. And I was like, well, that's why we try it because firsthand we'll see for real. Did they really enjoy doing this or did they get in there and they're like, no, not for me. So it's just a lot of things that go into it, but the parent and the student need to be open to that experience.
And then Sabrina, so playing off of that, when you are communicating with families, or like when very early on in the process, as you are learning both the student and the families, how do you communicate to them your expectations, or I guess, how do you define your job to the families that you're about to work with?
Hmm. Well, again, we're taking it from the lens of like my role as your work-based learning supervisor over the course of these next few years is to open doors for you to as many career clusters. That's what it's called in New Jersey, career clusters as possible. So you can begin to narrow down which of those clusters is most appealing for you career wise. And then simultaneously, it's to teach you the readiness skills to be a great employee. And
Mhm.
we'll talk a lot about what being a great employee looks like. So that's when I'm wearing that hat. When I'm wearing the transition coordinator hat, and I need to get this quote because I just actually put it on my LinkedIn. But part of my coursework in one of my classes at the University of Kansas, they said our job at transition coordinators is to help you design a life that others envy. And
Yeah,
I just that quote just makes me feel so good inside, right? Like what if you were to tell people what is your ideal life? What is someone's ideal life? It's having family around you that you connect with. It's having a group of friends. It's maybe volunteering in your community and feeling satisfied with work and feeling like you're contributing, making a contribution. So,
I like that.
yeah, right. So, as transition coordinator, I have now firmly stated that my role is to, when you graduate here, we want you to have a life that other people would envy. Like, wow, look at Sabrina. She's got it going on. She's got a career that she loves. She has relationships, whatever that looks like, her friends,
Mhm.
her family, her kids. She's giving back to her community, whatever that looks like. And she's making her mark, whatever that
Yeah.
looks like. So, and for our students, obviously that's going to look very different. So I think that even if we sometimes look like, oh, they're not going to have a career. Ultimately, we're going
Mhm.
program route. We don't have to look at that like, oh, right? No, I'm still doing things in other aspects of my life where maybe I'm contributing. So at my day program, I might be on the receiving end and I'm a taker, but in the community, I'm volunteering for a dog shelter or I'm volunteering for my local food pantry. So there's ways that I can still be a contributor
Yep.
to my
An
community.
active participant in the community. Yep. Yeah, that's what we have. We follow the Charting the Life course. That's been some new framework that the state of Maryland, especially for those going self-directed, but for anyone as they're planning to move forward, that we've encouraged our families. And we have a woman whose son went through our county, and she always phrased it. I love this. It's, what's your good life look like? And it's going to be different from, this person's good life, but what's important to them, and keep that in mind. And like, not just from one person, it's from all these different people in their lives contributing to what their good life may look like. But it puts in perspective, because I feel like we get so wrapped up in they need to work, they need to do this, they need to do that. But like you said, it's so dependent on the person and what's important to them. And we have to remember that as we plan.
I also, in addition to my work here in the school district, I work for an agency and rooted in ABA therapy. So many of these students or learners, as we call them there, are getting therapy in home. And my boss recently approached me and said, I see what you're doing in your school district. I would love to extend our services to 21 and beyond now. So I have taken on the role as our adult uh, director of adult services for that agency. And when I just met with our staff, I really encourage them. A lot of times you're like, I want to be with the little ones,
Hmm.
so you get in your preschool bubble or you get in your elementary school bubble and you're very narrow visioned of this is a lifespan disability. And our little guys grow up to be adults. So I encourage them that even if they have no desire to necessarily work with the adult population, to get themselves in a position where they are meeting adults with special needs.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's important to see the work that they're doing and the foundation that they're laying is contributing to who these individuals will be someday, you know?
Absolutely.
So, I said to them, I'm like, I am going to plug the 21 plus division now for our agency. But at the same time, even if that's not necessarily where your heart's desire is, put yourself in a situation or a position. We have a lot of, there's agencies now here who are doing social groups
Mm-hmm.
for adults. And it's really cool. I'm like, if you can volunteer your time on a weekend just to give yourself exposure. And, I never thought that the 18 to 21 population would be where I settle, but this has been such a joy and a blessing in my life. And I love, like, that last day is so bittersweet when they're leaving us,
Yeah.
but to see how far they've come even in just 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they still keep in touch with you.
They do. In fact, we just went, the New York Giants just did Fan Fest Friday night, and I saw 2 of my graduates.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? What are you up to? Like, so excited to see you here. And
Oh, that's so
the
cool.
funniest part is when these guys are like, I'm turning 21. I'm having my first beer. I'm like, all right. Like, seeing a
Yes.
side of these students that you just don't get access.
Yeah. So many that leave and they're like, okay, once I turn 21, we're going to be friends on Facebook.
Right. That's another one to navigate.
If you could articulate, what do you see as the biggest benefits to your job?
For my students?
For you, actually, from looking at it from the job.
The biggest benefits. Well, I don't know. This is going to sound strange, I guess, but I think it's taught me, it's actually helped me in my own life because I chuckle sometimes when I'm doing some of my own adulting and I'm like, girl, you need to practice what you preach. Right? So here we're like, use your Google Calendar and time management and budgeting. And then in my own life, when maybe I'm dropping the ball in some of those areas, I've actually, put my own teacher hat back on. And I'm like, all right, maybe this is an area teacher Zabrina can help real life Zabrina, So if anything, in my personal life, it's reminded me that, life is hard not having a disability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have so many responsibilities. There's so many things to navigate as an adult, everything from social interactions to holding down a career and being a parent and juggling all these hats that we wear. And we do put really high expectations on, I think, just students in general. And then our students with disabilities are navigating another whole layer of that. So
Yeah.
if anything, it's shown me the areas in my life where maybe I personally need to step up. And then it's shown me areas where I need to show myself a little grace and my students a little grace.
Mm-hmm.
That it's, it's okay to make mistakes. We're here to help them course correct. And I thank God that I have really good friends in my life who help me course correct when needed.
Good deal. And then now, what are the most challenging aspects of the job?
I would say that when it comes time to the baton passing is, I'm going to be very blunt. I saw someone posted in one of our groups. I don't know which group we actually met in because I'm in a few. It was a teacher aide and she wrote, "Oh, our transition coordinator dropped the ball because this kid graduated and didn't have a job." And I was like, "Ooh, ouch." Right? Now, it wasn't me. She was talking about, I didn't know who this girl was, but I'm like, you could say that about me, that I've had students leave here and they didn't have a job when they left, but I don't know if you understand all of the variables that go.
Mm-hmm.
I have parents who flat out told me, I think your program's great and I love that they're doing work-based learning, but I have no intentions of them working when they leave here. flat out. Now, my aide might not know that because it's kind of none of their business, right? We share some information on a need to know basis. They're not sitting in all of the IEP meetings, what the family wants and desires in terms of what their medical benefit is or whatever it is, personal that they may not work after. Um, you know, I don't want to say like this. The only phrase I could think of is like, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I don't,
Yep.
that's necessarily the kindest or most appropriate phrase in this statement. But like, if we're giving you all the tools and all the connections and you opt not to use them,
Yeah.
it could still look at the end of the day that I, as the transition coordinator, dropped the ball.
Didn't do my job.
Right. The other really challenging thing for me is I'm learning DDD and DVRS and what they offer. I just happen to be a transition coordinator who has a son with an IEP. So what I've done now, mind you, his functioning level is significantly higher than my students here. However, I decided at age 14 for him to register to DVRS because you can do the pre-ETS, the pre-employment transition services. And I did it just to see what it was like on the parent side. Is the turnaround time as slow as everyone's telling me? It actually wasn't. The letter was 4 weeks to the day, then we turned it in. My appointment was 2 weeks after that. DVRS is actually hunting me down because I haven't had a few minutes because I'm moving to connect with them. So I'm finding that all the kind of rumors that I heard about DVRS to date are not accurate. Now, are they on top of me because they know my role as an educator? I don't know. I can't answer that. But learning, I would say challenge number 2 is learning DDD and DVRS, what exactly they offer, what ages you're allowed to have access to, and things like that. And then those limitations of your benefits.
Yeah.
Well, we're teaching you all these great work skills, but then you can only work so
You
much.
can only work. Yeah.
You can lose your benefits.
So for those, you said the case managers that aren't in like, the students who aren't in the 18 to 21 program, but they have case managers in the school who kind of also act as the transition coordinator or person for them. Do they get any training on DVRS or DDD to know what to tell families?
I don't know, truthfully, that those students are accessing or even, they're told about it, but I think in their head, they're like, oh, we definitely don't need DDD. But I don't know that DVRS is being promoted as much as maybe it should be.
Yeah.
Because even in some of the trainings that I've been to, like I've learned they can even help with college. College tuition could be paid if you need help or accessing special education services. And I don't think many people know about perks.
That's similar. So ours is called DOORS, the Division of Rehabilitation Services. That's our DVRS. And I would say the same. It's not, they're just notoriously been thought of as inconsistent with communication, which I think it varies too, depending on how on top of it you stay or, the coordinator or the counselor you have. But ultimately they offer a great amount of things. But I don't think it's taken advantage of enough by students and families.
Right. And then the other blurry line, which is maybe something you can educate me on, is we do, well, you said you don't really have alternate programs. Like, do you have Project Search?
We do have Project Search, yes.
So we have Project Search, and we also have another program here. And it's the big question of the day is who funds that? So if you have a participant, let's say, who's maybe a little bit beyond what we're offering, but they want to go to one of those other programs, who's paying for that ultimately?
Gotcha.
Right? If you're functioning at a level that basically supersedes what we're offering, you're ready to work, you're ready to take college classes, but you're 19 or 20, you're technically allowed with us till you're 21. You could start that program early. Where does the funding come from?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Project Search is the program in our county that is like considered top tier for independence and
Yeah.
Like, we only have 12 spots, but they have to be doors and DDA eligible or DVRS and DDD eligible.
Does your district pay for Project Search Kids, or DVRS is paying?
They're still technically in the school system, so the district would be paying it because DDA would not kick in until 21, and I think doors they just have to be eligible. But I wish we had more options than just that. I think of all the students we have, and I wish there was other programming options, alternative options before 21.
I know. After starting this career, specifically with transition, my heart, and I know it's going to happen someday, I'm just not in a position at this moment. Like, I really want to start my own
Yeah.
post 21.
Oh, there's a couple transition coordinators I have joked about that. That'll be our retirement gig.
Right. Exactly. Let me add one more thing to my 3 job titles and the agency I'm working for. Right? But I just see such a need, especially for the gray kids, right?
Yes.
Not quite a day program.
Yep.
Column, and you're not quite the full-time work column. Yep. Who are you?
Those tweeners.
Right. How can we best support you? And that is what DDD self-directed is supposed to be, right? So we're going to get you working part of your day. We're going to get you out in the community, but that still requires like a lot of manpower on mom and dad.
Yeah.
Potentially not working, themselves.
Yes.
So I would love to be able to design something that encompasses all of those things for you. Mom and dad can still live their lives and work. And then this student, or whatever we're calling them when they graduate, this young adult, kind of has the best of all worlds that we're offering you while you're here. Community access, some kind of vocational experience, and then access to your community.
Well, let me know when you get it sorted.
I will.
I'll copy your model.
Yeah, you guys will be the first I call for sure.
Yeah.
I can definitely throw out there that this conversation is on a whole different level than quite where I'm at right now. As we were moving into season 3, when we did the previous 2 seasons, I was the special educator. So I was always positioning myself as the surrogate for the family. I've only been doing transition coordination now as a job for like a couple of weeks, and there was always the part that we talked about and the part that I thought that I understood, and then now
this is my 4th year here. I mean, I have many years under my belt, like in general, but transition world, 4 years, and I feel like I have a lot to learn. I mean, I only have 2 classes left in my grad school for transition, and I still feel like I have a lot to learn. And and I will say the University of Kansas is doing amazing things, amazing. And the state of New Jersey, when you sit in these community of practices, also their vision of what this should look like is also amazing. But the vision and the application are 2 different things, and trying to work your best with the budget that you have, the number of staff that you have, all the moving parts that go into what a day. I mean, if I had a camera following me around, you'd be like, how are you even doing this? Because you want everyone to have the best experience possible. Yeah. And that takes a lot of people and a lot of time and a lot of resources.
Well, and that's where the individualization comes in, because that's one of the other challenges in terms of just transition in general. And again, it's something that I feel like my world has opened up a bit in that regards, is that Meghan has always said transition is so individualized. And now I'm kind of like what you were talking about before. I'm seeing it and I'm watching it and I'm experiencing it all now in real time. And it's like, oh man, how do you coordinate all of that?
I agree.
Zabrina, we can't thank you enough for taking the time out to talk with us. Like I said, I'm going to have to go back and listen to this 4 or 5 times to like truly absorb everything that you talked about.
I'm so happy that you invited me here. And if we have other topics, I would love to come back. Like, even there's other coordinators that we can get together, even if it's off camera. Love that. Because like I said, I'm the kind of person that if you give me a task, I'm going to jump right into the deep end and try to learn as much as I can. I never want to be in a meeting with a parent like fumbling. I want to know. So I'm just trying to learn every aspect of it, even if it isn't under my at the moment. I'd rather, the more you know, the more you can.
I hear you.
So
I love being able to pick up little tidbits here and there because you just never know when you're going to need them.
Well, then, with that being said, thank you
so much,
yeah,
Sabrina. It was lovely to meet you.
We would love the information from this and all our other discussions to reach as many families as possible, and we need your help to do that. So please like, follow, and share out our podcast. You can find our conversations on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music, and that's just naming a few. So please share and share often. You can always find the links to the information from this discussion in our show notes.
Check out our YouTube channel. We've done some of the legwork for you by curating videos of topics that revolve around transition. We have playlists, we cover guardianship, alternatives to guardianship, able accounts, and there's still more to come as we are finding those videos that we think will be valuable to use. So please be sure to subscribe there as well. And then finally, check out our website, which is full of information and links to resources around the transition process. So make sure to go to www.postsecondarytransition.com. We thank you so much for the time you spent with us and look forward to talking again soon.